These Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for sake. This is who the Democrats are thinking of following? City-run grocery stores? No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
Bill Maher has always had zero chill when it comes to roasting his own side. But this moment feels different from his usual jokes and criticism. The sharp-tongued comedian took direct aim at Democrats for supporting political moves that he believes could seriously backfire. Known for his brutally honest humor, Maher didn't hold anything back as he delivered commentary that was both biting and painfully real. His style is merciless, but also entertaining, mixing sharp criticism with humor that keeps audiences listening. In this moment, however, his message carried a stronger tone, suggesting that the decisions being made within the party could have serious consequences. It sets the stage for a heated discussion about political strategy, messaging, and the direction of modern politics.
That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5, isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say math is racist. Healthy at any weight? If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say.
Maher didn't hesitate when criticizing what he sees as a growing woke mindset within his own party. He argued that Democrats can no longer rely on trendy talking points and expect automatic applause from voters or the media. According to Maher, those days are over. In today's political climate, every statement is instantly analyzed, fact-checked, and scrutinized by a public that is far more aware and engaged than before. Voters are no longer passive observers. They are paying close attention, noticing inconsistencies, and questioning narratives that don't align with reality. Maher's core argument is simple but blunt. You cannot shape reality with slogans or messaging alone and expect voters to blindly accept it. When politicians stretch the truth or avoid contradictions, people notice. Over time, that disconnect damages credibility and trust. And when a political party loses trust with voters, it doesn't just face criticism, it risks losing elections as well.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're Democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
Maher didn't stop with cultural criticism. He also turned his focus toward what he sees as the Democratic Party's growing interest in socialist rhetoric and candidates. He described this trend as a risky political gamble that could have major consequences for the party's future. Pointing to polling data, Maher noted that around 66% of Democrats now express favorable views of socialism, while only about 42% hold positive views of capitalism. For Maher, that shift represents more than a simple change in opinion. It signals a deeper ideological movement that could push the party into territory that many Americans still distrust. His warning was direct. Embracing ideas that voters associate with government overreach or economic instability could alienate moderates and provide political opponents with powerful campaign ammunition. In his view, if Democrats continue leaning into labels and policies that make mainstream voters uneasy, they could risk not only criticism, but also long-term damage to their credibility and electoral chances.
I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism. But the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that?
At the same time, Maher acknowledged that the United States already includes many programs that resemble socialist policies in practice. Systems such as Social Security, Medicare, public education, and emergency services represent collective investments designed to benefit society as a whole. Maher made it clear that he recognizes the value of these programs and the role they play in everyday American life. However, his concern centers on the idea of balance. He warned that pushing too aggressively toward ideological branding around socialism could shift that balance and create fear among moderate voters. According to Maher, turning socialism into a central political identity risks giving opponents an easy narrative to attack. He reminded viewers that he has previously warned Democrats about strategic missteps that the party ignored, warnings that were later followed by electoral losses. For him, the lesson is clear. Political survival requires careful messaging and an awareness of how voters actually respond to ideological shifts.
It's either defund the police or military in the streets. Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods. Governor-elect Spanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal! You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con, get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in.
What seems to frustrate Maher the most is what he describes as the growing combination of woke activism and socialist messaging within the party. In his view, ideological purity tests and activist rhetoric are pulling Democrats away from the political center, which is historically where most national elections are decided. When political messaging focuses more on signaling moral virtue than on solving practical problems, Maher argues that voters begin to lose interest or even turn away completely. His larger point is that successful political parties win by persuading the middle, not by speaking only to their most loyal supporters. When messaging becomes highly polarized or overly ideological, it risks making the party appear disconnected from the everyday concerns of ordinary voters. Instead of strengthening their political position, Maher believes Democrats may actually be weakening it by prioritizing internal approval over broader public support.
It seems to me that there are two pillars that this country is founded on. One is democracy, and one is capitalism, free markets. And it seems like one party wants to get rid of one, and the other party wants to get rid of the other, right? The Republicans are not that, democracy is just not number one on their list. It just isn't. It isn't. It's behind Christianity and a few other things. And the Democrats, I mean, I read these 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars?
Maher also pushed back against repeated claims that American democracy is on the verge of collapse. In his view, the more immediate risk is not a sudden authoritarian takeover, but a political party losing touch with the voters it needs to remain competitive. He argued that the deeper issue lies in ideological shifts happening within the Democratic base itself. As support for socialist ideas grows among party members, Maher warned that it could reshape the party's leadership and candidate pool in unpredictable ways. If the trend continues, he suggested that openly socialist candidates could gain serious momentum in primary elections and potentially rise to national prominence. His concern goes beyond labels. It focuses on the potential political consequences of embracing positions that moderates and independent voters may see as extreme. Maher's message is blunt. When a political party moves faster than the country is willing to move, voters often push back
hard.
I mean, where are the Democrats going with this? If Mondami is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for that party.
Maher made it clear that if the Democratic Party continues drifting in this direction, the outcome may not be favorable. He emphasized that outside of large urban areas and activist circles, many Americans remain skeptical of socialism as a governing philosophy. For a significant portion of the population, capitalism, despite its flaws, still represents opportunity, economic mobility, and the ability to build a better life through hard work. Maher worries that increasingly aggressive anti-capitalist rhetoric could push away the very voters Democrats need to win nationwide elections. Most Americans, he argued, are not interested in tearing down the entire economic system. Instead, they want improvements that make it fairer and more functional. In Maher's view, there is a critical difference between reforming a system and replacing it entirely. If Democrats blur that distinction, they risk losing not just arguments, but actual political power.
These democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Maher is not the only public figure expressing frustration with the direction of the Democratic Party. Others, including outspoken media personality Stephen A. Smith, have also voiced concerns about the party's messaging and strategy. Smith's criticism focuses less on ideology and more on communication and credibility. He argues that voters are growing tired of what feels like political theater, flashy gestures and dramatic statements that generate headlines but fail to address real problems. According to Smith, what voters truly want is authenticity, clarity, and leadership that feels grounded in reality. His perspective highlights a broader concern shared by commentators across the political spectrum. When influential voices from different backgrounds start raising similar criticisms, it may signal deeper issues within a party's political approach and connection with the public.
22 Democratic senators be literally echoing the same thing and think that would resonate with the American people. All it shows is that the same fabric of our democracy is unchanging in the eyes of some of these officials, and as a result, the constituency they represent, which is why Donald Trump is in office. What, do I have to come up to Capitol Hill and give you lessons? Seriously, you don't get it? All you did, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Chuck Schumer, let's all get together, let's put this in a prompter, and all together, albeit in separate rooms, we'll grab a microphone and say the same damn thing. And that's what's going to resonate with the American people. And then you wonder why you're no longer in power.
In the end, Mahar's warning does not come from hostility toward his own political side, but from a sense of concern and frustration. He believes the Democratic Party may be drifting toward strategies and messaging that could ultimately undermine its ability to win national elections. From his perspective, the party risks becoming overly focused on ideological trends, symbolic gestures, and internal approval rather than addressing the practical concerns of everyday voters. Maher argues that political success requires speaking to the broader public, not just to activist groups or loyal supporters. The fact that voices like Stephen A. Smith are raising similar concerns suggests that this debate extends beyond one comedian's criticism. Maher's final message to Democrats is direct, reconnect with voters, focus on real issues, and prioritize public trust over ideological applause. Otherwise, the consequences may extend beyond criticism and lead to electoral defeat and long-term political decline.